Joseph Trumpeldor was a Russian Zionist who grew up in Tsarist Russia in the Pale of Settlement. He served as a cantonist, meaning that at a young age he was sent to Russian military school. Because of his schooling, Trumpeldor developed a strong Russian identity that in his younger years overshadowed that of his Jewish. Trumpeldor began his training as a dentist, but he later joined the Russian army. In the Russo-Japanese War, Trumpeldor lost his left arm in the siege of Port Arthur. After recovering from the war injury, Trumpeldor was discouraged from returning to the army due to his handicap. However, in response to the discouragement, Trumpeldor replied, "But I still have another arm to give to the motherland." This persistent attitude would remain with Trumpeldor through his later Zionist endeavors. Despite Trumpeldor's enthusiastic outlook on serving his country, he was held as a prisoner of war in Japan following Port Arthur's surrender. While in captivity, Trumpeldor met many Jews interested in moving to Eretz Yisrael. Though he had considered his Jewish homeland prior to his imprisonment, this occurrence marked a pivotal moment in his journey as a Zionist. After moving to St. Petersburg, Trumpeldor studied law and then emigrated to Eretz Yisrael in 1911. He worked at Kibbutz Degania. At the start of World War I, Trumpeldor traveled to Egypt with fellow Zionist Zev Jabotinsky, where they created the concept of the Jewish Legion to fight against the British. Thus, the Zion Mule Corps was formed in 1915, the first completely Jewish military unit in 2,000 years since Bar Kokhba. The Zionist Mule Corps was a rough draft for what would later become the Israeli Defense Forces. This all prepared Trumpeldor for his final battle, not for his motherland, but for his homeland.
Tel Hai was one of 4 Jewish settlements in the Upper Galilee. The settlement was formed in an attempt to broaden the borders of Eretz Yisrael. Around Tel Hai, there were several semi-nomadic Arab tribes concentrated in villages, the largest of which resided in the village of Chalasa. This area, on the border of Palestine, was in a region of conflict between Syrian Arabs and the French colonialists. The Bedouins allied with the Syrian kingdom, while the Jews decided to remain neutral in order to not get involved with an unnecessary conflict in which they had no part. Arab gangs roamed the region and regularly pillaged Jewish villages, claiming to be looking for French soldiers. In this context, happened the Battle of Tel Hai. March 1st, 1920. Led by their Mukhtar, or Arab village leader, Kamal Effendi, Bedouins from Chalasa, and hundreds of Shiite Arabs from the village of Jabal Amil in southern Lebanon are marching towards Tel Hai. On arrival, the Arab party demands to conduct a search for French spies and soldiers, who they so passionately hate as the occupiers of their land. The Jewish settlers, desperate for help, facing an intimidating force of hundreds of Arab opponents, fire a shot to call for reinforcements from nearby Jewish settlements. Saving the day, over marches Yosef Trumpeldor, along with 10 courageous Zionist revolutionaries from the neighboring Kfar Giladi. Eventually, Kamal Effendi is permitted entry into the village to search for soldiers. Yosef and crew attempt to convince the Arabs to leave through non-threatening negotiation. While surveying the Jewish settlement, Effendi saw Deborah, a Jewish woman, wielding a pistol. Deborah is pointing her weapon at Kamal, surprised to see a Bedouin in Tel Hai. Effendi demands the weapon be taken from Deborah, as women aren't supposed to wield firearms. In the subsequent confrontation, a shot is fired, and a major exchange of fire began between the opposing Arab and Jewish parties. During this firefight, the courageous Trumpeldor is seriously wounded. The Jews then barricade themselves inside the village along with Effendi. He asks to leave, saying that the whole confrontation is a misunderstanding.
The Arabs retreat. However, a Jewish defender accidentally fires his weapon at the Arab party, and the exchange of fire recommences. 6 Jews and 5 Arabs are killed in the firefight. The esteemed Trumpeldor dies on his way to Kfar Giladi after having been shot twice in the hand and stomach. Following the battle, the Jewish settlers must leave Tel Hai, and following their evacuation, the Arabs in the Galilee set fire to the village. Only the Hill of Life was left in ashes. But because of Trumpeldor's dying words, "En Davar, Tov Lamut Be'ad Artsenu," meaning, "Nothing better than to die for one's country," proved that even in the face of death, the whole nation of Israel would live on in perpetuity, and the Zionist dream would continue to prosper.
While Tel Hai was an isolated event, it was a solid example of what would follow: extreme hatred from the Arab nation. The conflict was simply over the land of Israel. The Jewish people began to migrate towards Israel, and the Arabs did not think that they are capable of taking over. However, as more and more Jews were creating life in Israel, the Arabs began to feel very jealous and felt the need to try to get them to stop. Jabotinsky noticed this arising issue and proposed that the Jews create an iron wall. The term iron wall is a concept used to signify what the Zionists must do in order to prevent the Arabs from interfering with the Zionist enterprise. The Jews must protect themselves and their values by preventing the Arabs from taking over while they are building Israel. By the Jews building an iron wall will show the Arabs that they are in Israel to stay and are not going anywhere. By the Jews becoming very dominant of their land, cause the Arabs to look at Zionism with a negative light, as they felt that the Jews are trying too hard to take over.